My name's Kate here at Hub and Spoke with the San Diego Public Library, bringing you bottom bracket overhauls. All right, so step one in a bottom bracket overhaul is we're going to want to remove the cranks. So you're going to grab an 8mm Allen key and remove the crank arm bolts, which are in the center of the crank. These are lefty-loosey, so we're just going to take both of them all the way out, both on the drive side and the non-drive. Because these are a square taper crank, that's the type of interface from the crank to the bottom bracket, we're going to use a square taper crank puller. All this does is thread into the crank arm. It can be tricky to get it started. We don't want to cross thread anything. And you're going to tighten that all the way up so it doesn't move anymore. And then this arm, we're just going to rotate, and it's going to pull our crank off of our bottom bracket spindle. We're going to do this on both sides. We can leave the chain right like that. Remember, we don't want to cross thread it, so take it slow. And that is our crank arm removal. Now we're going to switch to the non-drive side of the bike and remove our bottom bracket. All right, now that we're to the bottom bracket removal, we're going to grab our Shimano bottom bracket removal tool and the Pedros hold the tool on tool. And what you're going to do is you're going to line the splines up. They do strip and move pretty easy, so we're going to want to use this Pedros tool to hold our tool in place so we don't break our bottom bracket. After that, you're going to grab a big wrench. These are on very tight. We want to make sure that we have good mechanical advantage. Always disassemble a bearing point from the non-drive and reassemble from the drive. And what we're going to do is lefty-loosey on this side. We got it loose. Don't forget, if you don't back out this tool, you're going to butt up against it and not be able to go anywhere. Once it's hand loose, we're going to remove our Pedros tool, and we're just going to dial it out by hand. That is the removal of our non-drive side cup. Now we're going to take out the drive side. All right, so same tools, put them on the same way, line up the splines, and put our Pedro holder on. Now the drive side is opposite, so it is righty-loosey on all English frames. Most likely you have an English frame. If you don't know, Google your frame. And we're just going to loosen that. And again, once it's loose, we can take off the Pedros tool. And we're just going to spin it out all the way. And notice, I'm turning this tool right. It's opposite. Pay attention to that. This is a square taper sealed cartridge bottom bracket. It's labeled. If you are replacing it, buy the same one. We're just going to clean this one and put it back in. All right, so I've cleaned my bottom bracket and I've cleaned my bottom bracket shell. Next important thing, because this is where noise usually comes from on a bike, we're going to apply a lot of grease to our bottom bracket shell. All right, we are all greased, so now we're going to assemble from the drive side. So I'm going to slide it in, and remember, it's lefty-tighty. It shouldn't be difficult to turn this in. If it is, you might be cross-threading, and you don't want to do that. It will damage your frame. Look how easy that is. That's how we want that to feel until we're torquing it down. Now we're going to grab our tool, slide it on, finish that last little bit. And because I don't like to strip my parts, I'm going to put my holder back on so that tool doesn't slip. And bottom brackets need to be very tight, so grab your big wrench and put all your weight behind it. Now we're going to reinstall the non-drive side. All right, so grab your non-drive side cup, and again, we're going to start by hand. Now notice this cup is plastic, so when we get to torquing it down, you just want to snug it up. If we put too much, it'll crack. All this cup does is hold that large cartridge in place, so we don't want to crack it and allow it to move around inside our frame. We're going to keep doing it by hand. We're getting tight. I'm going to grab that tool so I don't strip this very sensitive plastic. Now we're going to grab our wrench and snug it on up. Not a whole lot of power going into this side. Just going to give it that one little boop, and that's it. Do not put your 150, or if you're a little heavier than me, 160 on that plastic cup. We're going to reinstall our crank arms and we'll be good to go. All right, so first thing we're going to do, let's take this chain and just get it right on the inside there, because we're going to want to put it back on our crank. I know it probably doesn't need to be said, but remember, they need to be opposite of each other. No one wants to ride like a bunny rabbit. We're going to put one on and then onto the other side. I do not grease square taper spindles. They are a press fit. We don't want that press fit to change because we lubricated it. Next, we're going to grab our crank arm bolts. These are also known for making noise, so let's put a liberal amount of grease on them. Just so you guys can see, I'm not shy about it. Not at all. Good amount of grease. We're going to thread them in, start it by hand. We don't want to cross thread anything. We don't want to buy new parts after just cleaning ours. Put them on both sides. Back to our 8mm where it all started. We're going to snug them up. And this should be also very tight, almost 35 to 40 Newton meters. Use the tool correctly. Notice I'm going to push down while I hold this crank arm. And I want those to be super tight. They do fall off if they're too loose, the whole crank arm. We don't want that. There we go. Snug it up. I don't like to walk around to the other side of the bike, so I'm still going to hold that non-drive crank arm, or the drive crank arm, and we're just going to put all our weight behind that crank arm bolt. Couple good 2-3 of these, and we're good to go. Last step, if you want to be able to ride, don't forget to put that chain back on, otherwise you'll be going nowhere. That's a bottom bracket overhaul. I hope you guys enjoyed bottom bracket overhauls and are going to go home right now and do yours.